Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are jumping into a time machine and heading way, way back, like 3,500 years back, to ancient India. We're going to go on an expedition to meet the truly fascinating people of the early Vedic civilization. Ready? Let's do this. But hold on a second. How in the world can we know anything about people who lived so long ago? I mean, they didn't have paper or printing presses, let alone the internet. So how did their stories, all their knowledge, and their ideas manage to survive and reach us today? Well, that's the very first puzzle we're going to solve together. All right, first things first. Before we get any further, we need to figure out who exactly were these Vedic people, and where do they fit into the huge, sprawling timeline of history? So check out this timeline. It shows us something super important. The story of the Vedic people in India kicks off right around 1500 BCE, and that's just as another amazing ancient civilization, the Harappan civilization, was beginning to fade away. So you see, a brand new chapter was starting on the Indian subcontinent. Now, these people, who were originally nomads from Central Asia, didn't just show up and stay in one spot. Nope. Their journey happened in two big phases. First, in what we call the early Vedic period, they settled down in an area called Sapta Sindhu, which means the land of seven rivers. Then, after hundreds of years, they started moving east into the super fertile Gangetic plains. Okay, so let's get back to our big mystery. If they didn't write anything down at first, how do we know all this stuff about them? The answer is, well, it's something absolutely incredible. They're talking books. The secret is hidden in their sacred texts, which are called the Vedas. Now, the word Veda itself comes from the ancient Sanskrit language, and it just means knowledge or wisdom. And these weren't just simple stories. This was a massive collection of everything they knew. We're talking hymns, poems, rituals, you name it. It was basically their entire library of wisdom. And this just shows how they pulled it off. Just try to imagine this. For more than 1,000 years, this gigantic library of knowledge only existed inside people's heads. That's right, priests and teachers memorized every single word, every syllable, perfectly, and then taught it to the next generation, who then taught it to the next. It's just an amazing feat of memory, a chain of knowledge passed down just by listening and speaking until it was finally written down in Sanskrit. So now we know who they were and how we knew their stories. Let's switch gears and look at how they actually built their society. How did they live and work together? They had a really clear and logical setup, kind of like building blocks. The smallest block was the family, and the head of the family was called the Grihapati. You put a bunch of families together, and you get a village, or a grama, which was led by a gramini. And then you group a bunch of villages together, and you get a tribe, called a jana, which was led by a king, the Rajan. See? Simple. But this king, the Rajan, he wasn't some all-powerful dictator who could do whatever he wanted, not at all. He was usually chosen because he was the strongest and smartest leader, someone who could actually protect the tribe. And here's the most important part. He had to listen to his people. His main job was to rule based on what the tribe actually wanted. And to make sure the king didn't get too carried away, he had two important councils helping him out. You can think of them as his coaches. First, there was the Semiti. This was a big assembly where literally any member of the tribe could get up and share their opinion. Then there was the Sabha, a smaller group of wise elders who gave the king advice. And get this, women took part in these assemblies too. Okay, so we've talked about their government, but what was it really like to be alive back then? I mean, what did they eat? What did they do for fun? Let's take a little peek into their everyday lives. Well, their diet was pretty simple, but actually really healthy. Their main foods were grains like wheat and barley. They also ate plenty of fruits and veggies and loved milk and honey. For special ceremonies, they had these drinks called soma and sura. And while they mostly ate plants, meat was on the menu from time to time. And they definitely knew how to have a good time. They were into exciting outdoor stuff like chariot racing and hunting. For those quieter indoor days, they loved to play dice and board games. And just like us, they were big fans of the arts, especially music and dancing. Okay, let's talk about something really, really cool about the early Vedic period. In this ancient society, women were highly respected and had a very important role. And honestly, this was pretty different from a lot of other ancient cultures around the world at the time. Just look at this list of rights. Women could actually get an education, and some even became famous scholars who wrote hymns that are still in the Vedas today. They had a ceremony called Swayamvara, which let them choose their own husbands. There was no child marriage, and if a woman became a widow, she was allowed to get remarried. Basically, women had a lot of freedom and respect. All right, let's look at two more big pieces of this puzzle: what they believed in, their religion, and how they organized their society when it came to jobs. The Vedic people felt a really deep connection to the natural world. They didn't build giant temples or worship statues. Instead, they worshipped the powerful forces of nature itself, like Indra, the god of rain and thunder, and Surya, the sun god. Their church, so to speak, was the open air where they would chant hymns and make offerings. Now, to keep their society organized, they had a system of 4 main groups, or varnas, and these groups were based on a person's job. So you had the Brahmanas, who were the priests and teachers; the Kshatriyas were the warriors and protectors; the Vaishyas were the farmers, merchants, and craftspeople; and the Shudras were the laborers who helped out the other 3 groups. But, and this is the most important thing to remember about this system back then, in the early Vedic period, it was flexible. Your Varna depended on what you did, not what family you were born into. That meant a priest's son could become a warrior, or a farmer's daughter could become a teacher if she had the talent. You could actually change your job, and with it, your Varna. Wow, we have traveled a long, long way back in time and learned so much. So before we head back to our own time, let's do a super quick recap of our whole expedition into the early Vedic world. So, what did we find out? We learned the Vedic people started their story in India around 1500 BCE. We know about them thanks to their amazing talking books, the Vedas, which were memorized for 1,000 years. We saw that they lived in tribes with kings who actually listened to them, and that women had a ton of rights and respect. And finally, we saw their social system was based on your job, not your birth. And that brings our journey to a close. As we get back in our time machine, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. From everything we've seen, their flexible society, their respect for women, their connection to nature, what's one idea from the early Vedic age that you think is still really important for us to remember today? Thanks for exploring with me.